So starting off, a very warm welcome to our featured guest today, who is Yen Lin Huang, also known as Mashbean, to our colleagues and friends in the Co-Intelligence Institute, and anyone who may be joining us for the first time today. Just going to start off with a little bit of an introduction to what we do at the Co-Intelligence Institute, CII. We are a non-profit organization with a vision of a world that works for all. A world where all human affairs are guided by a wisdom that partners with life and works for long-term broad benefit. We focus on two key areas. Firstly, co-intelligence, which is an inquiry into the question, what would intelligence look like if we took wholeness, interconnectedness, and co-creativity seriously? And secondly, wise democracy, which is the exploration of the question, what would democracy look like if we design collaborative governance systems to appreciate, evoke, and engage the wisdom and resourcefulness of the whole on behalf of the whole? So what we do is we learn from the wise work of others that others are doing, and we identify approaches, patterns, and principles at play in their work, and then we support others to explore how they can apply these approaches to their work and their lives. And the way we do that is by sharing real life stories, case studies of other people's good work, and approaches to the complex challenges of our time that we feel demonstrate co-intelligence. We promote and develop tools like pattern languages, group processes, and digital platforms to evoke and engage greater collective wisdom. And last but not least, we welcome people into learning communities like on this call today, where we can all deepen our understanding of co-intelligence and develop our capacity for wise relating and living well together. So these monthly community learning calls are designed for us all to learn from and with practitioners who are on the leading edge of what we call real-world co-intelligence. So that brings us to our call today. And the program for today's learning call is hearing from Mashbean about Taiwan's digital democracy. So we're going to first of all have a presentation, then Tom Attlee of CII, CII's founder, will offer some reflections, drawing on patterns from the Wise Democracy Pattern Language, which is a tool to help illuminate some of the insights we gain from good practice. And after that, we'll give you all a chance to discuss in breakout groups and inviting you to think about what you've heard and discuss. And we'll be giving you a couple of questions when you go into the breakout groups. And then when you come back in the final half hour, we'll have a brief report back from some groups and give some time for Mashbean to respond to comments and questions, as many as time permits. And then what we usually do is anybody who wants to, so the call lasts 90 minutes, but at the end, if anybody wants to hang out with us, have an informal chat, you're very welcome. So with that, I want to introduce our featured guest today, Yen Lin Mashbean, who serves in the Taiwanese government's Ministry of Digital Affairs, or MoDA. Mashbean is a trained doctor who's now joined the ministry to support the work of the internationally renowned Digital Minister Audrey Tang. Mashbean works in the Department of the Democracy Network and in the Plurality section. And he's an advocate for the concept of plurality that he'll probably be talking about a little bit later. And he's also a Web3 architect. And for those of you who don't know, I think Natalia is going to post in the chat what Web3. I was going to explain it, but it will take too long. So just before we hear from Mashbean, a little bit of context to set the context about Taiwan's digital democracy. Taiwan has a relatively young democracy, which was born in the 1990s, around about the same time as the emergence of the internet. So the history of Taiwan's internet culture and its democratic culture are closely intertwined. Taiwan also faces unique challenges in managing its historical and geopolitical relationship with the mainland People's Republic of China. So these adverse circumstances have meant that democratic participation is something that has become incredibly important and a deeply felt part of Taiwanese culture. This context has also created fertile ground for pioneering innovation, which makes Taiwan a shining example in the world of democracy, particularly in the digital sphere, with its open government initiatives, bottom-up citizen consultation, digital deliberation spaces, online petition systems, and much more. We're probably going to hear soon from Mashbean. So, Mashbean, great to have you here with us. Thank you so much for coming along and being willing to share your knowledge and expertise. I believe you have prepared a brief presentation for us to kick things off.
Yeah, thanks, Andy, for the introductions. And I am Mashbean and currently working under Audrey's ministry. And the ministry is Ministry of Digital Affairs. But I think it's quite awkward that before I joined the government and working in the web's community that is decentralized autonomous organization, and it's kind of anarchy, lots of anarchy with some technical background, and they gather together to find out if there is a way to make our own cooperatives or collectives that can form the new type of the democracy. But after several years, I joined the government and it's centralized. So the controversy between centralized and decentralized, that is the problem that we face nowadays. And I think that Audrey Tang is one of the ideal example of how to make a bridge between the centralized governments and the decentralized communities. So I will make a really, really brief history of Taiwan's digital democracy. And I think that after the presentation, it is good for us to discuss the use case or the scenario in Taiwan, because I think that the Eastern history is something, the culture from the Easterns is a little bit different from the US or in the Westerns. So I think I can just start. Okay, so I'm going to tell a little history about internet activities and digital democracy of Taiwanese from Taiwan. It is born just from the 1990s. And I think I can start the story from the first web page in Taiwan. Taiwan's first web page is built by Frontier Foundations. And one of its founders was an early left rebel offenders. And at that time, Taiwan was just lifting martial law, and there was a surge of social movements. And yet they encountered much resistance from the bureaucratic systems. So in 1994, this foundation launched Taiwan's first World Wide Web called Taiwanese Social and Cultural Network. Its mission was to preserve all intangible elements of Taiwanese cultural and society to create a new medium and to be a tool for social actions. It's a kind of a little bit left-wing. And at that time, the left wing is illegal and the government wants to put them all into the jail. But the internet tools make these things happen. So the movement, they archived much of Taiwan's ecology, arts, and cultural and history of social movement. And it has a strong grassroots character. So when this foundation have their movement of the website or web archive, after this movement, this group, they founded the Taiwan's first search engine, just like Google, but the name is Yen, Y-A-N. And they make a lot of money at that time. And most of them is still working in the Taiwan's important positions. And one of them is working in the National Science Committee for more internet development. And one of them is the ambassador of the North Pacific appointments in Taiwan. Yeah, this is the first track. And the second track is that in 1990s, beyond the websites, there is another system called BBS, the bulletin board system. I'm not sure if anyone has used BBS systems before, because at that time when we don't have the graphic UI, we can just dial in the telnet to use the BBS. It's a lot of words and we just type the words to communicate with each other. And the most active BBS platform in Taiwan's public domain is PTT. We call it PTT in Taiwan, in Chinese. And it's before the emergence of the website, and it is expanded from the college campus to the societal use. It's one of the few social platforms in Taiwan that is without algorithmic sorting and is maintained by the university student. Hundreds of thousands of people still log in today. It's anonymous, and its lack of sorting made it a unique platform to initiate many social movements in the 2010s, such as the Military Reform Alliance movement or the 318 student movement in 2014. And this is the really closed story from the GovZero. But however, PTT now faces issues of fake accounts, information manipulation, or information warfare. And still, PTT is still active today, and lots of people use PTT, and it's one of the culture in Taiwan. And in the 2000s, it's the era of the blog. I'm not sure if everyone have your own blog to post your own articles today. Yeah, because lots of us just used Facebook or Instagram or something else, the social platform. So the decentralized community that introduced blog to Taiwan is called Elixir. It's a group formed by a lot of tech geek. And at that time, Audrey Tang is I think it's just 20 years old, and she is one of the founder of Elixirs. So to effectively disseminate ideas, beliefs, and spirit, they actively promoted the use of blogs, because blogs is kind of decentralized. Everyone can have their own website to express what they think. And the significant contributors from the Elixirs now is the really important people in Taiwan nowadays, such as Audrey Tang, CL Gao, or Isabel He. They are all parts of the Elixirs in 2000s. And CL Gao and Isabel He, they are one of the founder of the GovZero. Yeah. So I think the blog is quite important in Taiwan's internet activity history. So in 2010, it's the era of crowd-participated social movements. And internet or social platform or internet is one of the plays critical roles in the movement. So the most well-known group is GovZero, G0V, which describes itself as a Pol.centric open source organization. It's never been an officially registered legal entity in its decade-long existence, and it is keep itself as a grassroots digital group. Its original aim was to digitally supervise government's budget and policy, and hundreds of projects have since emerged, and its influence has grown substantially. Participants come from all over Taiwan and even the world, with so many kinds of experts. And GovZero considers itself as an internet activism group, striving to build an ideal civil society through citizen power. And yet, the 2010 has a lot of social movement and civil movement in Taiwan because of the geopolitical problems. So GovZero is one of the rules that support a lot of internet or web digital tools to the social movement. And vTaiwan, the digital platform for the public deliberation, was also established at that time. And after that, Audrey Tang, she went into the cabinet of the Taiwan government and tried to put more digital or decentralized spirit into the Taiwan's governments. So in 2020, I think there is another new era of the people first private-public partnerships, because the Ministry of Digital Affairs was just established last year, and Audrey Tang is the first minister in Taiwan's MoDAs. So it's another era of Web3. Web3 is a quite complicated and blurred concept for nowadays. And we said that in Web 1, we can have our own website, but people cannot reply at the website, and we can just have the single directions of the informations. And in 2000, maybe 2010s, there are a lot of social platforms that we can communicate with each other. We can reply under the post, we can share the post, and it's bi-directionals. So we call it Web 2. And in Web 3, we think that we can own our own post. We can take back our digital sovereignty. We can control our own account. It's not controlled by Facebook or controlled by X, Twitter, or something else. So there are a lot of new digital tools for us to control our own identity or data. And this is the meaning of Web 3. And yeah, because I am working at the sections of Plurality, we want to find out if there is more tools. There are more tools for us to enhance or supercharge the digital democracy in Taiwan, to make the GovZero movement or the vTaiwan movements or the deliberation traditions in Taiwan more vivid in the digital space in Taiwan. Yeah. So also in 2020, it's the pandemics. And during the pandemics, the projects from the Taiwanese civic society is also assisted in epidemic prevention, such as the mask map. We can get our mask from the map from different location, like the convenience store or something else. And it is the map is created by the civic, not by the government. But the government, they collaborate with the contributors from GovZero to make the mask more officially and more it can be more confidently think it is just from the official place, and we can make it more confident. Yeah, and yeah, after the pandemic, MoDA is established, and MoDA has numerous ongoing projects at the intersection of the emergent technology and democratic society, such as we talk about AI. So there are AI democratization. We try to use more AI tools to enhance the digital deliberations. And yeah, we use the decentralized tools to make our society more heterogeneous, more diverse, but they can cooperate between difference. Yeah, and maybe many people can have different ideology, different opinions, but we can sit together to discuss what is the consensus and how to collaborate in the digital space. I think it's quite it's just ongoing, and there are some successful projects and some is not that successful. Maybe we can discuss later. Yeah, so I think that the conclusion is that the grassroots internet movement in Taiwan stem from the context of the times. It includes geopolitics and the technology movements. And there are also a form of voluntary summoned under free will and after work actions, because a lot of contributors from GovZero, they don't have the full-time jobs at GovZero. They have their own job in the day, and they contribute their open source project in the night, and they gather together in the weekends. And yeah, because before I joined the MoDA, I am one of the contributors at GovZero. So I joined MoDA and still one of the contributors at GovZero. So some people, they join the governments, but most of the people, they still work hard in the GovZero. And I think it's how to make the governments and the decentralized community work together. It's the big missions that we want to fulfill. So it's an ongoing experiment in Taiwan. And I think digital democracy is not just voting online. We can have our discussions together online before voting, and how to conquer the misinformation, to enhance the quality of deliberation, or to just make the things happen without voting. They are all the concept of the digital democracy. So I think the definition of the democracy, digital democracy, is really diverse. So I think we can have the discussion after about digital democracy. Yeah, so yeah, it's the brief history about Taiwan. And there are a lot of track in the Taiwan's problems and backgrounds. If you don't have, you cannot fully understand what happens in these 30 years. I think I am the one who can introduce more today. So yeah, I'm Mashbean, and thank you, Andy, for the introductions.
Thank you so much, Mashbean. That's wonderful to have your, the rundown on this history of democracy and digital democracy in Taiwan. Some of the things that stood out there for me were how there's always been this sense of activism that has taken place on the internet, a sense of working for the social good in society, and that at a kind of pivotal moment, maybe in the 2010s, with this student movement and the sunflower movement, that this activism was actually the government was able to harness it and to bring it into government, and to use that participation so that it actually could generate collectively wise decisions for the whole of society. So absolutely fantastic to hear all of that. It was also really interesting to hear about, like, in how in 2020 the civic participation helped to prevent the spread of the pandemic, and I was reading about it today, how in fact in Taiwan, being very close to China, where the pandemic started, you nevertheless were able to control it, and through civic participation and digital infrastructures, you were able to actually not have a lockdown and contain the spread quite successfully. So that's another thing that stands out there for me is this fact of, like, the trust that through having this open system of government with transparency, that has actually enabled a greater trust between citizens and government. So wonderful. We don't have so much time for questions, but I'm gonna ask you a couple before we pass over to Tom. You mentioned that you are working in the section of plurality within the Democracy Network. Could you just say a little bit about this concept of plurality and how that shows up in Taiwan's democracy?
Yeah, I come from section of plurality, and the plurality is coined by Audrey Tang. Yeah, and I believe it is somehow similar to the idea of wise democracy, but it is more science fiction, I think. Yeah. So in one sentence, plurality is a concept that serves as a bridge between technology and democracy. It can be a technical tool, an ideology, or kind of social movement. So plurality, is coined by Audrey Tang and Glen Weyl at the RadicalxChange Foundation. And Glen Weyl has, in his article, Why I Am a Pluralist, in February 2022, defined that plurality, what is plurality is and what it is not. And he believed that the plurality, instead of pluralism, is more institutional and can create more effective collaboration using the new tools such as AI or Web3. And in the MoDA, we think that plurality is cooperate across diversity, which is CAD principle. So we can use various technological tools such as LLM, the AI, ChatGPT, or a smart contract from Web3 to create the collaboration between diverse groups and create a better future. And in Chinese, we said that plurality is interoperability and co-presence. Interoperability means that we can create some standards, protocol, or norms to allow for more exchange or intersections between systems and tools. And co-presence means that everyone, all voices can come together and discuss in the same room or in the same virtual room. So a lot of example in Taiwan, we use Pol.is as a tool to create the visual representation of value distributions or different opinion, and is kind of form of co-presence. Yeah, so I think that plurality is the mission is the power of empower. How to empower the people to do more things, to stand up and just jump into the projects, the open source projects, or every kind of projects that is meaningful for the democracy society. It's really, really important. So Audrey, she thinks that the plurality can make these things happen. So she create sections of plurality. So I just joined the government and be one of the colleague in the sections of plurality. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, Mashbean. That's really interesting to hear this idea of, cooperating across diversity. And it sounds like that has the potential to sort of reduce polarization, I think I've heard that the term that you in Taiwan use is finding rough consensus to move forward, finding sort of shared orientation on various issues. Like, I think the famous case is of the Uber, how you use Pol.is, the digital platform, to find this rough consensus around how to do the licensing for this new Uber platform that it was appearing at that time. And another thing that we were just before everybody appeared on this call and you arrived on this call, we were just talking about somebody that we know in London who is working on this project, and you were talking about incorporating not just sort of the human into democracy, but also the non-human. And for us, this is, the Co-Intelligence Institute, we talk about, evoking, engaging the wisdom of the whole on behalf of the whole. And so that includes not just humans, but the natural world and non-humans. And could you tell me a little bit, I know this is something that is not necessarily happening right now, but that you're looking into. Could you speak a little bit about that? That would be fascinating.
Yeah, it's really cool projects, I think. And because in the sections of plurality, we are now wants to find out that the AI tool maybe can enhance the quality of deliberations. So one of the characters or the tool that AI can serve is the automated facilitator to facilitate everyone's opinion. And there are a lot of companies or organizations. There are a lot of projects that is already going on, like Meta or AI Objective Institute or Collective Intelligence Project. They all want to find out how AI can enhance or facilitate the opinion. But the other track is that some people want to make the LLM, large language model, to be the avatar or to be agency of the non-human, like the river, the mountains, or the animals. Because when we want to discuss the issues about environment or net zero, the interest of or the profit of human is not only the one of our purpose for maybe for sustainability or the abundance of the environment is one of another important important way for us to work hard. So yeah, so dark matters that or the contributors of vTaiwan, Shu Yang and Fang Rui, they develop tools that can represent the human, the river, to join the discussion in the humans deliberation workshop, and they can stimulate the people who join the workshop to have more diverse aspect to think about how we will influence the river, or river should river have the right about the pollutions? Can I get the money back? Can I get the fine or something else? So I think it would be a kind of cool example of how AI can make more maybe wise democracy happens or more deliberation happens. So yeah, it's one of the experimental project that we are doing this year. And if it is success or even not success, we will open source and will tell everyone how these things can be work or it's not work. Yeah.
That's super interesting, fascinating, bringing together AI to support the natural world and, you know, life on the planet. So thank you for that innovation and yeah, that exploration. So thanks, Mashbean, for everything there. We're now going to hand over for a bit to Tom, who is going to reflect on what we've heard and relate it to some of the theory and the patterns of co-intelligence and wise democracy. So over to you, Tom, and then we'll go after that into breakout groups.
Okay, thank you. Get my time here. It's interesting, as I was working over patterns, looking at different patterns that might apply. It's a different ecosystem of patterns that shows up in relation to Taiwan than in relation to most of the people that we have in these programs. So that's of interest. I said healthy polarity dynamics is one of the patterns. And I'll read the description of it. Polarities are interdependent realities, not always opposites, and not problems to solve. So seek healthy manifestations of and coexistence, synergy, dynamic balance, and evolutionary vitality between polarities like divergence, convergence, self-other, individual, collective, material, spiritual, subjective, objective, immediate, long-term, gravity, levity, depth, surfaces, safety, challenge, equality, freedom, etc. So what I was noticing right early in this was the government and anarchism. I mean, that's one of the things that struck me when I first started to study vTaiwan. It was like, this is just wide open, like open space is one of the processes we have, which is like totally self-organized, anarchistic sort of process. And that being used in government, and government citizens is another dichotomy that is a polarity that is dealt with. And the polarity framework of rough consensus from opposing stakeholders and the virtual and real, all these polarities, I sense vTaiwan actually finds them as a playing field, you know, something to work with, something to play in, rather than this is an impossibility and we have to solve it in some way. Use the polarity for the energy it has. And related to that is partnership culture, one of the patterns. And the description for partnership culture is a search for long-term broad benefit, which is our definition of wisdom, requires the shared openness and energy of all participants. Competition is part of it, but cooperation and mutual aid are the dominant themes. So realize the power of conscious collegiality. Nurture awareness to treat everyone, everything, and every situation as a potential partner. And I sense that also informs the spirit of the Taiwanese, Gov0, and the whole civic tech world. And Another one, which is common to the open source tech and Web3, is collective distributed intelligence. Many diverse individuals and groups have intelligence and resources to apply to their shared situations. So minimize alienation, domination, and conformity while encouraging and creatively engaging many diverse voices and players. Enable them to call forth, organize, and tap their vast collective intelligence, resourcefulness, and parallel processing capacity for better solutions. I'd like to stop for a minute and just ask Mashbean if he has any comments on those first three dynamics: partnership culture and collective distributed intelligence. If there's any particular examples that you can give us that really show those particular patterns in action.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I think that the pattern language is really abundant for me. There are so many concepts that I have to digest, but I think that I can share two projects under Gov0. One is vTaiwan and the other one is DAO0, DA0. It's kind of DAO, DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organization, but the O is zero. And yeah, in vTaiwan, I think the success in vTaiwan is already a worldwide famous example of how civic tech can change the government. But there is the other story that the vTaiwan is really depend on the contributors that is active. If the contributors, they don't have the resources, or if they have the more important mission they need to face in the real life, they cannot continue to contribute to vTaiwan. So the vTaiwan has kind of ceased or stopped at the past few years. But at that time, the government, they want to make another platform that is similar to vTaiwan. Everyone, Taiwanese citizens can provide their opinion for the specific policy making. It's called join.gov.tw. I think the two is similar, but one is created by the community and the other is created by the government. And the fact is that join.gov.tw, that is not really, how to say that, famous, or that is not that hard compared to vTaiwan. Only if the important policy or law that is going to make, and so the people will can to join the gov.tw to have the fight or to have the opinion on it. So yeah, join.gov.tw kind of replaced the purpose or the mission of vTaiwan, but vTaiwan has come back this year. It came back this year because of the AI. Because some contributors from vTaiwan, they want to make more experiments about how AI can help the policy discussions or or some collective movement in Taiwan. So they get some grant from OpenAI, the creator of the ChatGPT, and so they make the experiment in Taiwan this year. So yeah, vTaiwan has the same name right now, but they do totally different things or projects this year. But I think that it is really cool in the decentralized community, because everyone can have different experiment, or even if the same contributors, they want to do the different projects. Yeah, so this is the first example. And the second example is DAO0. DAO0 is kind of complex because in Web3, in Taiwan, most of people, they want to collect or buy Bitcoin or Ethereum to make them rich. But there are still a lot of people, they want to make Web3 a kind of digital public goods. They want to use the Web3 tool to make the digital democracy happens. So in the Web3 world, there are a lot of people trying to make the digital public goods or the collective movements, such as Zuzalu. Zuzalu is a kind of pop-up city for a lot of digital nomads, people which is under digital nomads to work together to build the open source tool to make the people can have more convenient DAO tools or can establish the standard between how people can discuss together or to establish their own community. So DAO Zero has a lot of the friends from all over the world. In Zuzalu, it's from Montenegro, and from Thailand, Chiang Mai, from Japan. There are a lot of DAO in the world, and we call it DAO to DAO diplomacy. It's not the official diplomacy, but because everyone is decentralized, so we can find our own, we can find the friends that is in the same ideology or same way to contribute, and everyone can use others' tools or others' invention to stack or to make it more useful in the local community. So I think it's quite cool, and because under interoperability and co-presence, everyone can share their tool in the Web3 world, because the smart contracts is kind of the same language in the same blockchains. So it is a really new
world.
culture. Yeah, new world. Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Somebody needs to do a new DAO of democracy book that has the DAO as the decentralized autonomous organization. Anyway, we've run out of time for this particular section and need to go into breakout. So thank you very much. There's tons of other patterns, but hey, clock ticks.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, clock ticks. That was really helpful. Thank you, Tom and Mashbean, for that discussion there. So what we have now is an opportunity for people to go into breakout rooms. I think we're going to make like rooms of about 3 people. You get to just, say hello, introduce yourselves, and we give you a couple of sort of questions that you might like to talk about. And I'm just going to post them here. So what insights does what you've heard from Mashbean provoke for yourself, your work, your communities, and society at large? What do you have questions about or love to hear more about? So you can have a little bit of a discussion, time for that in the breakout groups. And when we come back, we can share them. We'll have some people who can, because we don't have so much time, a couple of people can share their discussions, and others may be able to post in the chat. And then we'll see if Mashbean would like to respond to some of those comments and questions. So Natalia, are we okay for getting people into breakout groups? I think we can run here up until about maybe just after the top of the hour. So just like maybe 12 minutes, something like that. Not so long. Okay, we'll open up the groups. Everybody's back here now. Thanks, Nancy, for some of that feedback. No, I don't think everybody got to hear that, but we can. What I'd like to invite you to do first of all is, as we have limited time, is first of all, if you want to put a comment in the chat about any insight or any question you'd like to ask Mashbean into the chat. And then we'll take a little bit of report back from a couple of groups about anything that you've found interesting. Maybe what Nancy was just talking about just now. So yeah, okay. Wow, lots of questions there. Brilliant. So as people are typing their questions, is there anybody that would like to give a little report back from their group discussion? Emlyn.
Yeah, I was in group 3, which included 2 Californians and 1 Chinese lady who's living in Switzerland. So one question was, how exactly did that do the people, does all this input from people get through to the government? That's one question. And the other one is, what do you do with the ways that people who would be opposed to democratization had, like with misinformation and fake news, and how is that dealt with? 2 small questions.
Fantastic. I'm going to take another person, and then I can reflect those questions back so that you hear them again, Mashbean. Anybody else like to give a little bit of a reflection on what you discussed?
I'm not sure how many people heard. Maybe Getri will say more, but I was commenting on Getri sharing with us the risk citizens in Kenya run if they are speaking to each other digitally. They become suspect to the government, and the government monitors very closely their cell phones, their digital communications, and they can just disappear. The government may just disappear them. And so they use the digital, but they code their messages and mostly try to make it person to person between different communities. I'm hoping she'll have a chance to say a bit more and reflect perhaps on how important Taiwan's democratic, very committed to democracy government is in making this whole thing work.
Civil rights is a pattern we didn't get to.
I'm also curious, Getri, and in that context, and it doesn't have to be answered now, whether in-person assemblies done to the same effect run the same kind of risk. Curious.
Getri, would you like to comment on that at all?
I'm sorry, it's kind of raining on my end. I'm not sure if I'll do.
Okay.
You can always answer in the chat if you have access to it. If you heard the question.
Anybody else, a brief reflection there, and then we can maybe look at some of these questions, which looks like there's a lot of good questions here.
Yeah, sure. I just feel like in our breakout group, we were really exploring risks of AI as well as benefits, and wondering how we keep those balanced, which I think Charles put a lot of that in the comment, but I just wanted to kind of get it at the essence of it, which has to do with, we do not live in a society that is aligned, in the sense that it's not designed to ultimately care about, in many parts of the world, to care about the well-being of humans. And so how can we make sure that AI gets put to a use that is aligned rather than to exploiting other humans? So that was kind of the gist of the comments.
Thank you, Rosa. I just want to say a big shout out, thanks to Rosa, because she was the inspiration behind getting these calls started and has facilitated a number of them in the past. So thank you, Rosa. So, okay, so let's look at these questions here first of all. So the first one was how inputs gets through to the government from the citizens' participation, and what happens when democratization is opposed and when there's misinformation that's put out in Taiwan. How do you deal with that? Maybe deal with those couple of questions first, Mashbean.
Yeah, I think the question is really interesting and important at this moment in Taiwan, because next January there is another presidential elections to to choose the next president in the next 4 years. And the one is maybe is 3 of the president candidate is kind of pro China, and the other is kind of pro Taiwan or maybe pro independent or something else. So it's really how to say that, interesting to me, because that we can see there are a lot of informations or messages that is comes out. The frequencies is more and more in these recent months, and it is really tricky for the governments to deal with the misinformation, because when the government wants to take care the information to see is it truth or is it fake, it is really sensitive, because people don't think government should control their free right of speaking. Yeah, but the speaking can be harnessed, or it can be poisons to the democracies. So it's kind of stuck at this moment. But some department or some ministries, they want to discuss with the social platform in like Meta or Google, because the relationship between the governments and the big tech, especially the social platform, I think the relationship is different from the scenario in the US or in Europe, because the government and the social platform, they tends to work together at this scenario in Taiwan right now. So we don't have the law right now to control the information to see if it is true or not. But there are a lot of the decentralized community or the civic tech projects to do the fact checking or to do the crowdsourcing about how the information is it real or is it fake, or is it manipulated from the China side potentially. So, and it is kind of the warfare at this moment, but it is really hard to define which kind of the information is in the war and what kind of the information is just the real opinion from the people. Because in Taiwan, some of the people is pro-China and some of is maybe pro the US, pro-Westerns or something else. Yeah, so yeah, this is a really interesting questions, I think. And the second question is that how to get through the governments. The first question is how to get through the governments from people's sides, I think. If I don't, yeah, okay. So I think that the government at Taiwan right now is really kind of conservative, because the public servant, they take the exam to go into the government, and the accountability is really, really important for the public servant, because people would blame on the public servants, and there are a lot of hierarchy and bureaucracy in the government right now. But there are a lot of young public servants, they want to make the change. So there are a lot of horizontal discussions inside the government and even outside the government. And because this kind of the new public servant joined the government, so I think there is something that is changing. And a lot of new way of discussion is happening right now, such as the people discussed public code funded by the public money, or how to make the privacy enhanced technology go into the governments. They all of this discussion, the MoDA put into the joint.gov.tw for people to discuss, and they implement the Pol.is tool to have a lot of statement, to flip the card, to stand with it or veto with it. And there is a polarizations map visually that help the government and help the community to find out what is the consensus and how to make the law about the digital steps happens. So I think there is still a long way to make these things as the usual or as a normal life. But yeah, it's on the way. Yeah.
Thank you, Mashbean. So we have also another question here. Rosa mentioned, you know, the risks of artificial intelligence and how do we keep them balanced so that AI is aligned to human interests and not, you know, harming humans. And yeah, what thought goes into that in Taiwan?
Yeah, in these questions, I like Audrey's opinion, so I will just express his opinion to the all. Yeah, the first is that she thinks that people cannot overcome the bias because bias is one of the way we keep efficient in our daily life. Because like in Taiwan, when we go to the escalator, we stand at the right, but maybe in the UK, they stand at the left. It's kind of the bias, but there are still a lot of cultural bias in different countries. So we cannot make a unified large language model to fulfill everyone's demands. So she thinks that the decentralized AI would be the first priority to develop. If everyone can run their own model, language model in their device, such as personal computer or mobile phone, we can tune or fine-tune or adjust our demand from the AI. So this is just another kind of the digital tools for us to use. We can overcome the bias due to the decentralized AI. This is the first aspect. But the second aspect is that we still have to discuss how to align the people's need. So in this year, we cooperate with collective intelligence projects to establish the alignment assemblies in Taiwan. We have a lot of the maybe open space technology workshop or other form of deliberative workshops to discuss how AI should be controlled or should be fine-tuned in Taiwan's scenario. There is a story that because Taiwan is the budget of develop the AI is not that much. So in the Sinica, the academia, the research team, they use the China model, the open source China model to mixture the data to make the Taiwan's model. But when people chat with this model, there are a lot of the conversation that is pro-China. So it is kind of the poison from the open source model. And we think that it is really important issue for Taiwanese. So how to make the model that is under the consensus in Taiwan, it is really important at this moment. So yeah, we think that the solution is we have to make the assemblies and deliberative process as much as possible. Yeah, so this is the second aspect.
Mm-hmm. I think that process is going on at the moment. I've just posted a link to the Collective Intelligence Project and the collaboration with Taiwan on that. Wonderful. Let's see what other questions we have here. Tyler's asking, what are I think we've kind of covered that a little bit, but yeah, I don't know, you may think you've covered that, Mashbean, but it's for you to look at. What are the main impediments to government adopting recommendations of the vTaiwan process? Would it be more likely to result in adoption if more of the population were involved? So yeah, it'd be interesting to know sort of, is in Taiwan a lot of the population involved? And lastly, are entrenched and vested interests a part of the issue of getting recommendations adopted? So yeah.
Yeah, we have met the statistic that actually there is not the major population join vTaiwan or join the join.gov.tw. That is kind of in historical statistic, maybe 500,000 people have joined or have participate the vTaiwan or joint projects. So Taiwan may have 23 million population, but only 500,000 people join because the digital tools is not that easy for people to use, I think, in this recent year. But the people who is really care the digital issues, most of them is already familiar to the digital environment. So a lot of successful example is in the digital, is the issue that due to the digital conflicts or digital platform or something else. So I think it's just a really small puzzles of the digital democracies. And there is still a lot of people, they don't know what is vTaiwan in Taiwan or what is join.gov.tw in Taiwan. And we think that it is really urgent for people to use the if they can use the internet, they should know how to they can have more steps to learn how to discuss with each others. And this is the important thing that we are trying to figure out how to make it happen in this recent year in the MoDA. Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so the interest part of the issue, I think that in vTaiwan or Pol.is tool, people can have the polarizations of the choice about the seed statement. And when there are a lot of people use Pol.is, the map of the polarization will be more true. And it is not about how many people use it. It's all about how many opinions that is in the clusters. So I think for the policymaker or for the interest group, it is important to see his opinion. Where is his opinion in this map, and who is similar to his opinion, so they can discuss together. And if they have different opinion, they can have the formal discussions in the deliberative process. I think it's the most important part of Pol.is or the vTaiwan. Yeah. I'm not sure if I answered the questions, but I think a little bit aligned about the questions.
Yeah, that there's an active to bring the various stakeholders together to discuss these issues, and to not let one dominate is part of the idea, I guess, in some of that, what you do. Fantastic. Yeah. So Nancy's comment and Getri were sort of talking about the different context in different countries, how there can be much different regimes, different sort of repressive. Some countries are very repressive. And I think that was one of the patterns that Tom was going to talk about, was context awareness as well, of like how Taiwan has a particular context that means that this particular form of digital democracy can flourish. I just wondered, Mashbean, do you have anything you could say about how this kind of model could be exported to other countries? Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, I think that except from Taiwan, there are a lot of countries have already used Pol.is, and I think it is more advanced than Taiwan. Take maybe Finland, for example. Finland has used the Pol.is in their, I think it's in county scale. They have a lot of county, right? So the government have try to make all of the county to discuss the same issues via Pol.is tool. And they have already done this process. And I think in next year, they will try out the whole country scale Pol.is deliberations. And we have discussed with them maybe 2 months ago, because they know that Taiwan has some experiment about Pol.is. But I think that Finland has far beyond of our process, because they want to make the whole country to discuss one issues from the Pol.is tool. And I am really interested in the results of this experiment, because I am not sure if Pol.is can have this large population or this large large amount of user to use the platform. Yeah, and this is the example of Finland. And there are still a lot of new tools of the online deliberation process, such as Talk to the City. I have posted the link in the chat room. It's another experimental tools from the AI. And I think there are a lot of tools that we can use, but how to make people really join the deliberative process online, I think it's still a really hard obstacle to join. Yeah.
So I think we're going to have to, unfortunately, bring it to a close there, because we just have 4 minutes left before the end. People are very welcome to hang out. You too, Mashbean. I know it's very late for you, so you may not you may want to go to bed now. But massive thank you, Mashbean, for your contribution, everything you've shared, and really for your sense of enthusiasm and, sense of making something possible that for many of us right now, seeing the state of democracy doesn't feel so possible. But, thank you for that sense of vitality that I think you capture the spirit of what's going on in Taiwan. So a huge thank you for that. I'll hand over to Natalia for the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you so much, Mashbean, for sharing the history and a lot of the current considerations of digital democracy in Taiwan. That was very informative and very inspiring. And if you are interested in joining more of these, we host these community learning calls every month on the 4th Friday of each month, and they are open to everyone and anyone who is interested in exploring more issues around co-intelligence, wisdom, governance, and our collective efforts to evoke and engage the whole on behalf of the whole. And next month, our call will be on Friday, November the 24th, and we'll be announcing our presenter, our guest for that very soon on our community page. And if you want to hear more about this, I'm going to pop in the chat right now. If you want to hear about more upcoming calls and other events that we host, please subscribe to our newsletter. I've got, Andy already popped it in, so now you have it twice. And we would love to have you at future calls. Invite any friends or colleagues if you think they might find some benefit from it. And of course, we are a nonprofit, and we welcome any donations if you'd like to help support these calls, as they help us make these freely available to everyone. So I will pop in a little link there if you'd like to help support the calls or any of our other events and efforts. And that will officially bring us to the end of today's call. So we're going to keep the room open for about another half hour. If Mashbean, if you can stay, that's great. If you can't, totally understand. I know it's late. And to everyone else, anyone else who wants to stay and continue to discuss, but we're just going to officially close off this presentation portion and kind of go to a more open format. And otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your day or night or whatever time it is for you. Thanks again so much for being here.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much.